Our course outline is going to begin with understanding what OneDrive for Business is and cloud storage in general, how to access OneDrive, navigate around the sites, and organize content stored within OneDrive. We'll talk about accessing information from the recycling bin and how to share information with colleagues. We'll go into how to even sync your OneDrive to Business to your computer so that you can easily access information in the cloud. So stay tuned for everything you need to know to get started using this very useful cloud storage tool. OneDrive for Business is an integral part of the Office 365 or SharePoint server and provides a place in the cloud where you can store, share, and sync your work files. You can update and share your files from any device with OneDrive for Business. You can even work on Office documents with others at the same time. Cloud storage is a cloud computing model in which data is stored on a remote server accessed from the internet or cloud. It is maintained, operated, and managed by a cloud storage service provider on a storage server built on virtualization techniques. For us, OneDrive for Business is managed by Microsoft through our Office 365 license. To access OneDrive for Business, I find the easiest way is to navigate to the URL portal.office.com. This brings you to the initial login page for Office 365, and no matter where you work, you can simply place your email address into the someone@example.com and then your password. Once you select Sign In, it brings you to the Office 365 portal, where you can access all of the different elements of Office 365, including OneDrive for Business. Now, OneDrive for Business is your work OneDrive, whereas if you had a home license for Office 365, you would be using OneDrive. When I select OneDrive, it opens up a new tab, and I can see now I'm here in OneDrive for Business, accessing this for the first time. Now, the first time you come to OneDrive, it gives you some information on what this product does, helping you get started. As it says, you have a place to store files and pictures, and they're always at your fingertips, no matter what device you're working from. We can also collaborate in OneDrive for Business, sharing documents and presentations. And finally, OneDrive for Business and Office make a great product that we all love, keeping things easy to find and easy to edit. Now that we've accessed our OneDrive for Business, let's go ahead and explore the site. On the top left corner of our OneDrive for Business screen, I have the waffle. This allows me to navigate to the different applications within the Office 365 portal. It's always available. I can also use the Office 365 button to navigate back to that portal. You'll notice that when I select on one of the tiles, it opens up a new tab. Just below the waffle and my Office 365 home button, I have my search bar. I can search for files or folders. Below that, I see that I have my navigation around OneDrive for Business. I can navigate to my files, files that I've recently created, or even files that other people have shared with me. I also have my recycle bin and a section to create new groups, although some organizations do disable this feature. From the center of my OneDrive for Business screen, this is where I will start to see all of the different files or folders that I've uploaded to OneDrive for Business. I've got column headings along the top that I can use to sort or filter the files within OneDrive for Business. Up at the top, I can create new files, upload files, and sync OneDrive to my local computer, which we'll be doing in a later section. In the top right corner, I can sort by name or modified by, just like I can by going to the individual columns within this view. I also have the ability to switch between a preview view that'll actually show me a preview of the file versus the list view that gives me more of the details. But If you want to see additional details, you have the Information panel, and this will open up all recent activity as well as additional information about files that you select. Above those options, we have our Settings icon, where we can go in and change the settings to OneDrive for Business or our other applications within Office 365. We'll be notified of any alerts, and, of course, the Help menu. If I want to sign out of OneDrive for Business, I can simply select my name in the top right corner. And here I have the About Me section where I can view my account and, of course, sign out, which I want to make sure I do if I'm ever using a shared computer. So as you can see, the interface for OneDrive for Business uses the standard left side navigation. It gives us additional options along the top links. And eventually we'll start to see our files and folders added to this center section of our page. Now that we've taken a look at the interface of OneDrive for Business, let's go ahead and start creating some folders. So we have ways to organize the content. From the top left corner, I can select the new icon that gives me the ability to add a number of different file types, including links, surveys, notebooks, and workbooks. I also have the ability to create folders. Here I'm going to create a folder for personal expense reports. Once I title the name of the folder, I simply say Create, and it adds a new folder showing me that it was modified a few seconds ago. Now I can also drag and drop folders that are stored locally on my computer. I'm going to open up the Explorer window. And from my Explorer window, you can see that I have a number of folders here for documents and other information that is stored on my computer. If I wanted to take a folder from my local computer and drag it to OneDrive for Business, I can do that by simply selecting, dragging, and dropping this folder. It uploaded the folder as well as any content that happened to reside in that folder. So uploading folders to OneDrive for Business is as easy as selecting New, choosing the folder, and naming the folder. But I can also drag and drop from any location on my local machine simply by selecting and holding down with my mouse, dragging to the center of the OneDrive for Business screen, and then releasing. In addition to being able to create folders within OneDrive for Business, I can also use OneDrive for Business to store photos and videos. I'm going to create another folder to store my photos and videos by going to New and choosing the new folder. To navigate into the folder, I'm simply going to select it, and that brings me through a breadcrumb trail to that lower subfolder. Now, I can see currently that this folder is empty, but I do have images and videos on my local computer that I'd like to include. So I'm going to navigate to the Videos section and simply drag and drop the video that I want to include into my OneDrive for Business folder. And then I'm going to do that again with pictures that I've saved. Now I can bring in multiple images at the same time. I would just either use the Control key or Shift key to select multiple items. Once they're selected, release my mouse, then click down, grab them, and drag them to the top of the screen. As you can see, it has that number 2 there, and when I release, it uploads those 2 images to my Photos and Videos folder in OneDrive for Business. You can see that the photos and videos have a different icon, and if I select one of those and open up the Information panel, it gives me information about that image, what type of file it is, the file path, and the size. As you continue to use OneDrive for Business, the content will grow, making it harder to find the information you need. But the good news is that we have a very powerful search. Search will sometimes take a minute to index the information. So if you've recently added something, it may not find it immediately. But once everything's been indexed, you can use the search bar in the top left corner to search for files. You can use the file name, or you can search for content within the file. I'm going to navigate back to the Files section so that I'm not inside my Photos and Videos library. Here I'll come up to the search bar and type for something like San Francisco. As you can see, it not only finds the image of the Golden Gate Bridge that I've saved, it finds the folder that that file is saved within. If I select the file, it brings me directly to a new tab where it shows me all of the metadata for this file, the name of the file, the version, when it was created. If I select on the hyperlink for that image, it will bring me to a preview of that file. I'm going to close this tab, moving back to the folder, and this time I'm going to search for the LearnIt logo. As soon as I type in logo, I can see that that LearnIt PNG file shows up. I can select it. Again, I get that metadata, and then I can view the item by selecting the hyperlink. So search is very powerful. Again, it takes a minute to index things. So if you've recently added items, don't worry, within a minute or two, you will be able to search for that information. If information within OneDrive for Business is deleted, you can recover it from the recycling bin. I'm going to go ahead and select my Photos and Videos folder. When I do, you'll notice that the options up along the top change. I have more options, such as moving or copying, renaming, and even deleting. When nothing is selected, I do not have those options. I'm going to select the folder Photos and Videos, and I'm going to choose Delete. It has me confirm that I want to delete that item, and you'll notice it gives me the status in the top right corner. Once the file is deleted, I can recover it. Typically, you have 30 days to recover things from the recycling bin. Organizations can adjust that, but I recommend to recover anything within 30 days. To recover a deleted item, whether it's a folder or a file, simply navigate from the left side navigation to the recycling bin. Here you'll see the item that was deleted, and all you need to do is select it. Now I have the Restore button, and I will restore it to the original location, wherever it had been originally saved. When I first come back to my files, you'll notice that it's not there, but I'm going to simply refresh my OneDrive for Business. Remember, with cloud-based storage, that refresh is sometimes necessary. So either by using the keyboard shortcut F5 to refresh, or going up to the top and refreshing your browser. One of the biggest advantages of using OneDrive for Business is the sharing capabilities. OneDrive for Business allows for easy collaboration. Although it is important to be familiar with your organization's policies on sharing and collaboration, some organizations prevent sharing with people outside of the company. It's also important to know that OneDrive is not designed for sharing with large groups or departments. Although you can, it's better to share things in a more centralized location, such as a SharePoint library or a shared network drive. That way, if you leave the organization for whatever reason, the information is retained on a company server or in a more central location. But let's go ahead and see how to share files. First off, you should be aware that everything that you place into your OneDrive for Business is owned by you. Files that you've created, folders that you've uploaded. But things that other people have shared with you are stored in a different location. From the left side navigation, I'm going to select the Shared with Me. Here I can see that files have been shared with this account. I'm currently signed in using one of our LT accounts, but I've actually shared a folder and a document with this account. This gives me and this laptop account the ability to access this information, although technically both of these files reside in Kara Clifford's OneDrive. I also have a folder shared with me by my colleague Chelsea. This file has been shared with me and resides in Chelsea's OneDrive for Business. So whenever you're looking for a file that someone else has shared with you, make sure to navigate to the Shared with Me section. You can use the Modified By to sort or organize who something was shared from, or when it was recently modified. You can also select an item, use the eye in the top right corner to open up the information panel, giving you a preview of the file, showing you recent activity, and the original location and other information about the file. Now, if something was shared with you and you have edit privileges of that file, you can go ahead and share it with someone else. If I wanted to share this file with my colleague Chelsea, I could select Share and then simply type in Chelsea's name. When I select Chelsea's name, I then add a message. Once I click Share, this file, owned by Kara Clifford, has been shared from the account LT Video 01 to Chelsea. So although I'm not the owner of this file, because of my privileges or the fact that this file was shared with me with edit privileges, I can now share it with someone else. Files that are owned by me can be shared as well. In my folder Department Projects, I have a number of different documents. And if I wanted to share one of those documents, I could simply select it, and then from the top option, choose Share. I'm going to go ahead and share this with my personal account. Now, if I wanted to share everything in this Department Projects folder, it would not make sense to select each individual item. You'll notice that when I have multiple items selected, even just 2, that Share option is not permitted. But if I navigate back using the breadcrumb trail and I select the folder that I want to share, I can then share that. Now, anything that I add to this department's project folder will be shared with Kara Clifford. And if I open up the information panel on that folder, I can see recent activity, the fact that it was shared, and I can see that Kara Clifford has access to this permissions. If for whatever reason I wanted to change those permissions, I could simply select that option. And here I could change who has access to this particular file. I can see that this user has access, and I could delete unique permissions to this, taking away the permissions that I gave to Kara. Remember, because this is a web-based interface, sometimes you need to wait for the refresh to see that those permissions have been changed. So, although sharing is permitted within OneDrive for Business, remember to keep sharing to a minimum, using just a handful of people to share files with. If an entire department needs to work with a file or the entire organization, best practice is to usually store it in a more centralized location so that the file or folder is not owned by you, the individual, but by the department or organization as a whole. As we saw in earlier videos, we can drag and drop folders and files directly into OneDrive for Business, but we can also create them here. Earlier, I created folders simply by selecting this option and naming the file, but I also have the ability to create documents, Word documents, Excel workbooks, PowerPoint presentations, OneNote notebooks, Excel surveys, even links. I'm going to go ahead and select that option, and you'll notice that rather than launching Microsoft Word on my local machine, I'm still working within the web browser. This here is Word Online, or the Word web app, the thin client that we access through the browser. The benefit of this tool is that if I don't have Office on my local computer, or if I have an older version that's outdated, I can use this online version from any machine. Here you'll notice that I have very similar interface to Word 2010 and newer, in that I have the command tabs across the top, as part of my ribbon interface. I have the File tab that gives me the ability to save or share, to create new documents, or access the info. My Home tab with all of the common formatting options and styles. The Insert tab for inserting things like tables or pictures, links or comments. And the Page Layout tab for changing the orientation or size or adjusting the spacing of my paragraph. On the Review tab, you'll notice that I have not as many options as I would in the local client, and the View tab as well. I cannot track changes or create a mail merge using Word Online, but most of the features that we have available to us in the local application, we have in the online version, the web app. If at any time I want to take this document and edit in Word, I have that option here. If I select Edit in Word, it's going to open Office 2016, launching the Word application, and prompting me to sign into my account. Once I've enabled editing, I can now edit the document using the full functionality of Word 2016 or whatever version you happen to be using. You'll notice that the Save icon in the top left corner has that refresh around it. And this is showing me that it's going to save it back to the OneDrive for Business. So I can add my information, insert my table, format it using one of the available formatting tools. And when I save this, close out of the file, it brings me back to Word Online. And here I can refresh and see that table that was added. Remember, sometimes you have to refresh it before it will show the information within your document. Now, when working within the online versions of the applications, one of the things that I think is really useful is the fact that I can change the file name by clicking on the file name at the top of the page. It saves automatically because I am working within a web app, so it's automatically saving, giving me that saved icon. And if I want to move back to my library, I simply select my name, in this case, how I'm logged into this machine. It brings me back to OneDrive, and here I have that Word document called Green Table. In addition to the Word web app, we also have web apps for Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. OneNote is a notebook application, and if I select OneNote Notebook, it asks me to first name the notebook. I'm going to name it Projects, and then I'm going to choose Create. Now, just like Word, OneNote has a web app as well as a local application that resides on your computer. The web app uses the interface of whatever browser you happen to be in. We've got the waffle in the top left corner, a way to navigate back to the OneDrive for Business library, and the name of the notebook right at the top. Notebooks are made up of sections and pages, and I can insert those as well as tags to help me remember important information. I highly recommend checking out our additional videos on OneNote to learn all sorts of useful ways to work with this powerful note-taking application. One of my favorite tools within OneDrive is the ability to create surveys. Excel surveys allow us to build a form as well as to store the results of the survey in Excel so that I can analyze the data. I'm going to go ahead and create a new survey. When I create the Lunch and Learn survey, it first creates the Excel file. You can see in the background I have the Excel spreadsheet, but it puts this Edit Survey window up at the front, and here I can title the survey. Here I'm going to insert my first question. I can choose a subtitle for that question, and I can choose what type of response, a paragraph of text, numbers, dates, times, as well as choices. I'm going to simply leave it as text, and I'm going to require that this question contain information. Then to add a new question, for this one, I'm going to select choice. Once I've placed all of my choices in, I can require that the column contain information, but I'm not going to select that. I also recommend using the other option, giving people the ability to add another choice. Once I am done adding my questions, I can save and view the survey. When it saves it, you'll see what it's going to look like to your users when they fill it out. They'll type in their name, and then they'll choose what they'd be most interested in learning about during their Lunch and Learn event. When I go to share the survey, it generates a URL. I simply email out that URL, and people will be brought directly to the form, not to the Excel spreadsheet. As people start filling out the form, the survey that I've included, I'll get new rows for each response in a table format. If I close out of this window, I notice on the Home tab of the ribbon, there is a Survey button. This is where I can go to view the survey, edit the survey, delete it, or share it after I've created it. And again, once I want to finish editing my survey and navigate back to OneDrive for Business, I simply select my name in the top left corner, and that brings me back to the OneDrive for Business Files section, where I see all of the different files that I've created, as well as that survey. Because OneDrive for Business resides in the cloud, I must access it through the Office 365 portal, like we showed you at the very beginning. But there is an option to sync OneDrive for Business to your local computer. And I find that when working with OneDrive files, this makes things much easier and more convenient. It's basically creating a path from your local machine to these files in the cloud. You would only want to do this in a computer accessed only by you and approved by your employer. You wouldn't want to sync work files to a personal machine unless that's permitted by your organization. From the top links, I'm going to go ahead and select the sync option. It has me sign in, and you want to make sure that it's using your appropriate OneDrive for Business username, your employer email address. You can then choose Next to go through the different information, and it'll show you what's going to be synced, all of the different folders, including files that are not currently in a folder. If there was some files that you didn't want to sync, maybe older files or things that you didn't want to clutter up your machine with, you could deselect any of these options. But I'm going to go ahead and say sync all files and folders in OneDrive, and you can see that it's using my company name LearnIt, so I know it's my OneDrive for Business. Now I can see that I have my OneDrive LearnIt folder here listed, and I have those same files, including the green table, the Lunch and Learn survey, that I've created in OneDrive for Business. Now, be careful because some computers have multiple OneDrives. There is OneDrive, a personal OneDrive that will come standard with most Windows 10 computers. But you want to make sure that you see the OneDrive with your company name. Many organizations will do this step for you, so you won't have to worry about it. And if I want to add a file to this library here, I can simply select any local application like Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, open up my new workbook, and then when I choose File, Save As, I can navigate to the OneDrive through LearnIt. Again, this is the online OneDrive for Business. The second OneDrive here would be a personal OneDrive, so make sure to use the one that shows your company name. I can name this, save it, close out of the file. Now when I refresh through my Explorer window, you'll see that budget Q1 2017 document is here. And if I navigate back to OneDrive, refresh my screen, I immediately see that budget Q1 2017 document here. This makes working within OneDrive for Business just as convenient as working with any local drive, network drive, even saving things on your desktop. So now, rather than risking losing something if your computer gets a virus or if it gets lost, you know that wherever you are, whatever device you happen to be using, as long as you have your employer email address and password, you can access your OneDrive for Business files. One last advantage I want to share with you regarding OneDrive for Business is the simultaneous collaboration feature. I have this budget document that I have shared, and now I want to show you how I can access this document, make edits at the same time as someone else. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to my budget Q1 2017 document. When I first select the document, it brings me to a view-only mode, where I can choose to edit the workbook in the local application or in the web app. I'm going to choose to edit in the browser. When I do, I can see immediately that someone else is also editing. Up in the top right corner, I can see that Kara Clifford is also editing, and I can see where Kara Clifford is typing. As Kara adds information, I can see where her active cell is, and if I go in and start typing information, someone else will see it. If I want to at any time chat with people that are currently editing the file, I have the chat option in the top right corner. When I select that, it will launch the Skype for Business web app, where I can send messages to anyone that's currently interacting with the file. This type of collaboration is very convenient when it comes to being able to edit information while someone else is also editing. That being said, it would not be an appropriate thing to do for documents that had privacy policies and that needed to be tracked with those changes. But remember that if something is stored in OneDrive for Business, shared with you, or if you've shared it with someone else, multiple people can be editing the file within the application. Remember, saving is automatically done. So all I have to do is navigate back to my OneDrive for Business library, and here I'll be able to see who was the last person to modify this document. And you'll see it was the other user, Kara Clifford, about a minute ago. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join this OneDrive for Business training.